Will you pray with me a moment, please? God, you are the source of all wisdom and insight, strength and knowledge. We thank you for your teaching and for your presence with us as you help us to clarify our own understanding and strengthen our own faith. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of each heart here be pleasing to you, O God. Amen. I watched him on the first Sunday of the month. You know, when we regularly celebrate the sacrament of Holy Communion in the community of faith. The reason I noticed him, first of all, was when he got up and left after the sermon and before communion. Then I started looking his way those first Sundays of every month. And sometimes he would slip out the side door. Sometimes he would be in deep reflection. And sometimes he even appeared to be in agony. He was always polite and courteous towards me, the minister. Not warm, not open, just kind of distantly polite. Once he and I were at the same party, and I walked in on a small group conversation in which he was a part. He was mid-sentence holding court when I quietly took an open space to his left. He looked a bit stunned when he had to finish what he was saying, a little trapped. And out it came right up in front of the pastor. I never take communion at our church. We have it the first Sunday of every month. It always makes me feel a little uncomfortable. And after he said all of this, his face looked drained of most color, pale and lifeless. One day, soon after his confession of faith at that social gathering, I called him up to ask if we could talk. And I was soon sitting on the patio in his backyard, a place where he was comfortable. He said, "Reverend, I wish you wouldn't have been in on what I said about communion." I was a little embarrassed about that. And I looked at him. Well, it did explain why you always show up missing in worship right after the sermon. I thought maybe it was my bad preaching. And he said, "I just never feel worthy at the table. If God only knew all of the weaknesses in my character and all of my transgressions." I responded, "Oh, but God knows all of that. God does know. And that's why there's a need for this big, deep table at the center of our community of faith. It is a place where all of us meet together on a level playing field. It's as if God says to each of us, I have invited you here to see all that I have laid down out of love for you, for all of humanity, for all of creation. Now, what are you willing to lay down or to give up at the center next to mine?" My friends, and it is the privilege to call you friends, this table is all about relationship. Relationships with ourselves, relationships with others, and most deeply, relationship with God. This is a God who works tirelessly to be in relationship with what and whom God has created, with you and with me, with the porpoise in the ocean and the wolf in the mountains. This table big and deep and wide, is all about relationship and relationship building. We often think that life should be fair and everything should be done with justice. What's the first thing out of the mouth of a small child when he or she does not get his or her way? Tell me. That's not fair. I knew you knew it. And my mother used to say, "Who said life is fair?" Yes, justice is the value of our faith. Justice for all of creation. But you know, love rates even higher than justice. God will accept who God will accept. God will forgive who God will forgive. God will love who God will love. The biblical scholar David Lose puts it this way: sometimes I wonder if we don't use justice as an excuse for tracking each other, our way of defining each other, of keeping count, of keeping score, of following who's in and who's out, who's up and who's down. God's love regularly trumps God's justice. God, Jesus, the whole biblical story, as it turns out, isn't primarily about justice, but about relationship. God's deep, abiding, tenacious desire to be in relationship with each and all of us. And scholar David Ewart says this: one possible moral of the story of Jesus and his encounter with Zacchaeus is to realize that salvation does not require nor result in perfection. Salvation in this lifetime is the process, the healing and reconciling that is needed for creating right relationships, within which compromised, impure, and sinful people like us, like you and like me, can live within in response to and toward the realm or the relationship of God. Tables. You know, some of you call this the altar. I spent 2+ years trying to get you to hear me. We don't sacrifice anything there anymore. That's been done a long time ago. That's the communion table. We gather around the table. Tables, unlike fences, are about building big and wide and deep relationships. Tables are where human beings meet on equal footing, on level playing fields, where all have a place and all have something to lay down to form healthy, nurturing relationships. Daniel Bryan says, Luke understands the importance of tables. 40 times tables are mentioned in the Gospels, and half of those times you find those mentions in the Gospel of Luke. He uses tables twice as often as Matthew or Mark. Some of the most powerful things that Jesus says or does there are at table. And the worst indictment his enemies can bring up against him is that he welcomes sinners and eats with them. You see, the table is a very sacred space, and Jesus, in the mind of some, has defiled it. Do you suppose that Luke kind of just threw together all these table stories without much thought to it? Is it a coincidence that Luke has so many tables in his gospel? Or might there be a connection between all of these table stories? Perhaps Luke is trying to tell us something about the character of the Lord's table. For instance, that it is at the Lord's table that we are called to serve as well as to be served. At the Lord's table, we are called to reconcile ourselves with our enemies and to be forgiven of our sins. At the Lord's table, we are called to sit with sinners and outcasts and foreigners and the poor. At the Lord's table is one of the few places we can demonstrate oneness of the body of Christ and the unity of humanity. At the Lord's table, when these things happen, we know that Christ is in our midst and God is alive with us. At the Lord's table, it happens most powerfully, most wondrously, most uniquely. That God can even find a place at the Lord's table for someone like me. So, Zacchaeus told his story at the table, and so did Mary Magdalene and Thomas and Martha and Lazarus and the rich young ruler and the Ethiopian eunuch. In telling each one of those stories, the priority of relationship was made central. The playing field was leveled, and God's realm came closer. This table, this big, deep, wide table has been at the center of relationship and community of this congregation for over 100 years. Relationship, the relationship that God is seeking, aching to have with each part of the created, has been affirmed and strengthened and deepened and made clear and given life over and over and over again right at this table. I always tell you, come to the table. If you left your membership card at home, that's just hunky-dory because we don't check for membership cards. If you've been coming to this table for 70 years, or this is your first time, you just kind of stumbled in the door and you found yourself with us, you are welcome at this table. It's not our table. We don't own it. It's God's table. And God invites you to a meal of grace and love and fellowship and reconciliation. So now it is your turn. Do not stay away for whatever reason. This relationship that God seeks with the depths of God's being cannot be complete without you. What is your particular table story? Come and share it. Let it mingle and bind and strengthen and clarify and heal with all of the others. It is a great day to be alive. Thanks be to God. Amen.